Hi everyone. Welcome to the conference number 8 of the Phase B of this self-knowledge course. In this conference we will talk about the sacred fire. The objective of this conference is to allow us to understand what the sacred fire is and to know what the steps, or requirements are for this sacred fire of Kundalini to awaken within us, so that we can enter the path of initiation. The Kundalini serpent is the solar fire enclosed in our seminal atoms, the burning electronic substance of the sun, which when released, transforms us into gods. But in order to understand what the sacred fire is, and the power it has, it is convenient to understand that this sacred fire is the same one that is present, but fully and completely developed, in all the awakened and self-conscious beings that form the army of the voice. The army of the voice, the army of the word, is fire. And this living fire, this living and philosophical fire that makes chaotic matter fertile, is what is known as the cosmic Christ, the Logos, the Great Word. When in Conference 28 of Phase B, we spoke of the universal and individual Christ, we explained that that great word through which everything that has been done, that was with God and that was God, is that universal Christ. It is that cosmic Christ that is formed by all the beings that have reached the total development of their inner Christ until they become creator gods, to be part of that great word, that Logos or creative fire. Now we need to know that as we are divine essences in the process of development, we are all potential gods. This is because in our interior we carry the seed of the divinity that, by developing it, will allow us to develop our individual Christ, so that we become the living manifestation of God. These gods are in charge of making and managing all the creations in the universe. Through fire they create and through fire they destroy. For this, they must channel and manifest that internal fire, that is the great Logos. But for the Logos to appear, for it to come into manifestation, the one must unfold into the two. Therefore, for the gods to create, since they are androgynous beings who have integrated in themselves both forces, the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine principle, they must unfold, the one in the two, the father in the mother. And from the union of the two opposites, the third force is born, which is the fire. That fire is the Logos, the Christ, the word that makes possible the existence of the universe in the dawn of any creation. The fire, the Christ, is what it is, what it has been, and what it always will be. Fire is the life that resides in all things, and that which gives life to all things. It is necessary that we understand that we are a miniature cosmos, a microcosm. And the same principles that participate in the gestation and creation of any cosmos, which arise from fertilization through the fire of chaotic matter. Likewise, to begin to give creation and shape to our inner cosmos, we must learn to fertilize, with the sacred fire, our chaotic matter, which is our seminal liquid. The chaos of the universe resides right now in our seminal system. And just as God had to fertilize the waters of chaos to create the universe, we must do the same, fertilizing the waters of our chaos to make our inner universe emerge. Right now, our inner water, that is our sexual energy, is polluted and in chaos, and all our fire is trapped in each of our psychological defects. So we must learn to rescue our fire trapped in our desires or psychological eyes, and to clean our waters, which is our mercury. Let's remember when in topic 5 of Phase B, we talked about alchemy, and about the 3 fundamental alchemical components of the great work, sulfur, mercury and salt. And how the alchemical mixture of these had to occur within us, so that we could achieve that maximum alchemical work, which is the transformation of the lead of our personality into the gold of the spirit. If we learn to fertilize our spermatic chaos with the Kundalini fire, the intimate Christ will arise from there, which is the golden child of sexual alchemy. We must know that the lighting in us of the sacred fire of the Kundalini will consist of 3 steps, through which we will obtain and purify those 3 alchemical components. In alchemy, mercury refers to the waters, the sexual energy. All the power of the Kundalini is found in our seed or sexual energy. The Kundalini is the fire of the semen. The fire has its habitat in the water, and if we spill those waters, we also spill the fire and remain in darkness. That is why chastity is the foundation of the great work. If we want to transmute our sexual forces, we must first be chaste, and not spill a single drop of semen. For this, we must work in reflective meditation, in the elimination of all those details of the eye of lust that led us to fornication. That is, to spill our sexual energy through orgasm and ejaculation. We must come to understand these defects, study all the times we have fornicated and how, see all the details of these defects and eliminate them from our emotion, our mind and our actions. This, so that we can go to the practice of suprasex, having control over our sexual desire, so that we never reach the point of spilling our sexual energy reaching orgasm or ejaculation, but that we can always channel it inward and upward, through of the spine. That is to be chaste. We must also be practicing psychological death at every moment to achieve a right feeling, thinking, speaking and acting. And thus achieve the balance of the centers that will allow us to purify these waters, transforming our mercury from black to white, then from white to yellow, and then from yellow to red. The second alchemical element is sulfur. In alchemy, sulfur is the sacred fire that must fertilize the mercury. The Kundalini is the fire of the semen. And that fire is the product of psychological death. Currently all our fire, all our inner soul, is caught in desire, and desire is the self in us. In order for that superior fire of consciousness to emerge, we must deny our egoic desires, and we do so through psychological death. By self-observing ourselves from moment to moment, judging each one of the selves that continually manifest leading us through desire to think, feel, speak, and act in a wrong way, and leading us to constantly misuse our energy. And we must eliminate them by begging our particular Divine Mother their elimination as soon as we discover them acting in us. In this way we will rescue those trapped essences. These essences are that inner sulfur, which is that fire that purifies all things, transmuting them into ineffable perfections. We must reduce all the elements to their raw material, which is the pure essence, by dissolving the ego, in order to later transmute those essences, once mixed with mercury in sexual practice. The third alchemical element is salt. In alchemy, salt is that element that acts on sulfur and mercury, coagulating and fixing them. Salt is represented in material works, that is to say, what we do in favor or for love of our own inner work, but above all in what we do in favor or for love of the other brothers of humanity, so that they also have the opportunity to awaken their consciousness. These conscious works give us the merits of the heart so that the Kundalini develops, evolves and progresses. The fires of the heart control the rise of the Kundalini. So, it is this love that we develop, that inner salt that when practicing sexual transmutation will mix with the purified sexual water or mercury, and with the sulfur or liberated essences, to ignite in our spine the sacred fire of the Kundalini. The Kundalini fire is a creative fire. Sulfur mixes with mercury and rises through the spinal channel to the brain, awakening the superior centers. The surplus of this mercury fertilized by sulfur is what must create the existential bodies of the being. First, regenerating the physical body and the vital body, and then, creating the astral, mental and causal bodies. So the astral body, the mental body and the causal body are nothing more than mercury fertilized by sulfur. Then, we can see that in the three factors for the revolution of consciousness, the alchemical process to carry out this great work is summarized, which is none other than giving birth to our inner Christ, and so that we can achieve the intimate self-realization of the being. With psychological death, we release the fire, the sulfur trapped in each one of the psychological eyes. With the spiritual birth, we make the mixture occurs in the seminal waters. There the sulfur fertilizes the mercury. And the sacrifice for humanity gives us the salt, which is the payment we receive for the conscious works of love towards the inner work and for the benefit of others. This salt coagulates and fixes these elements, and gives us the merits of the heart so that the Kundalini fire ascends, creating the bodies. The mixture of these three components results in the vitriol, considered the most important chemical substance par excellence, by ancient alchemists, that highly purified, it was used as a means to react substance in it. Vitriol are those seminal vapors into which the semen of women and men who practice sacred sex, and who have purified their energy, become. And which, when reacting with the Kundalini serpent, will awaken it. We must know that at the base of our spine, there is that serpent known as the Kundalini, asleep, coiled 3.5 times on itself. It is written in the old texts of ancient wisdom, that the lower orifice of the spinal canal of ordinary people is hermetically sealed. This orifice is known as the triveni. The triveni is the point of the sushumna where Ida and Pingala intersect. The seminal vapors or vitriol open it so that the sacred snake penetrates there. Remember that we saw in the last phase B conference that within our spinal column we have a channel called sushumna, through which ascends the sexual energy of those who practice suprasex, but who still haven't awakened the sacred fire of the Kundalini, because they have not reached the necessary level of purification of their mercury. In the center of this channel, there is another channel, a thinner one, which is known as the Nadi Chitra. Through this, the sacred serpent of the Kundalini will begin to ascend, once the seminal vapors have awakened the sacred fire, and have opened that orifice known as the triveni. When the solar and lunar atoms of the seminal system make contact in the triveni, then, by electrical induction, a third force awakens, the sacred fire of the Kundalini. By releasing that energy, we enter the path of authentic initiation. At that point, what is known as the lighting of the sacred fire, or the initiation, occurs internally. Remember that for the sacred fire of Kundalini to be ignited inside a person, it is mandatory that they be practicing suprasex with a stable partner of the opposite sex. The sacred fire only ignites during sex. Therefore, single people need to have a partner to be able to aspire to enter initiation. In the previous conference, we talked about the whole process of initiation, and the trials that we must go through to reach and advance in each initiation. And in the fifth conference, we saw that it is necessary that we carry out an inner purification work over our mercury. And when our mercury is already yellow, thanks to the work of death in the little details that make up our ego, we are going to face a trial of fire, in which we will see ourselves tested in our ability to control our inner fire. This is commonly a situation of anger with the spouse. And if we manage to pass that test and practice suprasex that night, then that yellow mercury will turn red, which will indicate that the sacred fire of the Kundalini has been lit. From then on, the sacred serpent will begin to ascend through our spinal column each time that we practice suprasex. And in the inner worlds we will receive a silver sword with a small blade, that will grow as we progress in the creation of the bodies. In this way we will advance in the work of the first mountain. After we light the sacred fire, each time we transmute the sexual energy, it condenses in the spinal cord, first in the 33 vertebrae of the physical and vital bodies, regenerating them, and later creating the astral, mental and causal bodies. We will start this path, and we advance in it, only thanks to the practice of the three factors. When the 5 solar bodies are already created, it is said that we possess a human soul. And by taking the direct path, we will have the right to join the Buddhic body, which is our divine soul, to achieve the perfect matrimony. From that union between the two souls, the intimate Christ is born. The intimate Christ is the fire of the fire, the flame of the flame, the golden child of sexual alchemy. The intimate Christ comes to do a very important work within us. The Christ comes to do all the work of the second mountain of initiation. We will have already fabricated the solar bodies, but now we will have to perfect them, turn them into vehicles of pure gold. And that will be one of the works of the Christ on the second mountain. Eliminate the dry mercury that are the psychological selves that remain to be eliminated from us, including the causal selves, so that the existential bodies are perfected, and can be covered by the different parts of the being. To perfect these bodies and convert them into vehicles of pure gold, the Christ must also eliminate the arsenic sulfur. What is the arsenic sulfur? Well, the carnal, bestial fire of the atomic infernos of man. That fire corresponds to the abominable kunda buffer organ. When the bodies are converted into vehicles of pure gold, they can then be covered by the different parts of the being, and there, finally, all of them come to serve as an envelope for our King, our intimate Christ. He rises from his tomb the instant there is such a wrapping, and covers himself with it, to manifest himself here, through the senses, and work in favor of the suffering humanity. This is how the Lord comes to life, this is how the Christ incarnates in the person. Up to that moment, it was a force that developed in the heart of man, but already at that point, finishing the second mountain, the intimate Christ will emerge into existence. He is the magnesium of alchemy. Already on the third mountain, he will take charge of the world teaching, and will unite with the being, becoming part of that cosmic Christ or universal Christ. In later Phase B conferences, we will be detailing each of the mountains of initiation. Something to keep in mind before ending this conference is that temptation is fire and triumph over temptation is light. The alchemist has to wrest fire from the devil, he has to wrest immaculate whiteness from darkness. The alchemist must practice sexual magic so that his black stone shines with fire and then becomes white, immaculate and pure. But he, who after working with the Kundalini, continues to spill semen again, that is, to have constant sexual falls because he does not make a constant and conscious effort to achieve perfect chastity, inevitably fails. Because with each sexual fall the Kundalini descends one or more vertebrae, depending on the magnitude of the fault. That is why we must fight until we achieve perfect chastity. Some observations to take into account are that the erotic flame would never ascend through the spinal canal of couples united by mere personal convenience. The rise of the holy flame in the dorsal spine of adulterous men and women would be impossible. It would never raise the fire of sexual delights in the spine of those who betray their inner guru. Sexual fire would never rise through the marrow of drunks, effeminate, lesbians, drug addicts, murderers, thieves, liars, slanderers, exploiters, greedy, blasphemous, sacrilegious, etc., etc., etc. We must take all these points into account, work on these defects in ourselves, also develop conscious love towards our partner, learn to seek the guidance of our inner being who is our guru, and obey him, if we really want to start and advance on the path of initiation. And this has been the topic of today. I invite you to our next conference. A very interesting topic in which we will talk about what baptism is really about, and what is the true baptism. Don't miss that interesting conference.